welcome back to the channel. So if you are new here, this video is part of a series of walkthrough videos I've been doing on the FreeCodeCamp curriculum, and in this one we are going to be learning all about CSS variables, and the project we are going to be building is this artwork here, which is sort of a skyline. And we have this moon here, we have this buildings, skyscrapers here. So yeah, let's get started working on it. Okay, so like we always do, the first thing that we have to do when we are building an HTML project is to declare the doc type. Okay, so I'm going to declare the doc type like so, and then I'll give it an HTML attribute. So this is going to tell the browser that the document we want it to read is an HTML document. Okay. All right. So for step 2, we want to add opening and closing HTML tags below the doc type. Okay. So we say HTML for our opening tag, and then this will be our closing tag. Now, we are also told that we have to be sure to set the language to English. So the way we do that is to add a lang attribute, and the value of the lang attribute is going to be en. Okay, next up, we want to add opening and closing head and body tags within the HTML element. So there's our HTML element, and we want to add first the head element, and then next up we want to add the body element as well. Okay, now the next thing that we are going to do is that within the head we want to nest a meta element with a char set of UTF-8. So there's the head, we want to nest a meta element, and the attribute we want to give it is char set. The value is going to be UTF-8. Also, we want to give it a title element with a title city skyline. So let's give it a title element, and want to give it a text city skyline. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is want to link our styles.css file to this HTML document. So the element you are going to use for that is the link element, and we're going to say rel. We give it a rel attribute. The value is going to be style sheet, and then we also give it an href. The value of the href is going to be the name of the CSS file, which in this case is going to be styles.css. All right, next up, in CSS, you can target everything with an asterisk. So the asterisk selector, this targets every element in your HTML. Okay, so we want to add a border to everything by using the asterisk selector and giving it a border of 1 pixel solid black. This is a trick that helps visualize where elements are and their size. You remove this later. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say border 1 pixels for the size of the border, solid for the style, and then black for the color. Okay, so as you can see, we have our border here. As you can see, this black border here. Okay, so let's move on. Next up, what we want to do is we want to add a box sizing of border box to everything. Okay, what this will do is that it will make it so the border you add doesn't add any extra size to your element. So you're going to say box sizing and then border box like so. Now you can see the body. It's the innermost box on your page. So as you can see, this is the body, our body element. Okay, and we have this thin black border around it. Okay, if you cannot see, let me make this 5 pixels. Okay, as you can see, we have our border around it. All right, let me change it back to 1 pixel. The box is around the HTML element. Make your body fill the whole viewport by giving it a height of 100 VH. So you're going to say body. First we select the body. We give it a height of 100 VH. Okay. Now, watch what happens if I take this away from it. And then if I add it back. Okay, so if I take it away, let's add it. Height, we'll say 100 VH. And it gives us the height of the whole screen area or the whole of the preview area. Okay, so I'm not done. So make your body fill the whole viewport by giving it a height of 100 VH. Remove the default margin from the body by setting margin to 0. As you can see, there are some margins here. Once again, let me change this to 5 pixels so that you see it well. As you can see, there are some margins here. There are some margins all over around our element. So we want to say margin and we set it to 0. Okay, now you see that there are no longer any margins around our element. So once again, let me change this back to 1. All right, now finally set the overflow property to hidden to hide any scroll bars that appear when something extends past the viewport. So we'll say overflow hidden. All right. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is want to start creating some div element. So first we'll create a div element in the body, and div element that we are creating, we want to give it a class. The value of the class is going to be background buildings, and this will be the container for a group of buildings. So once again, as a reminder, this is what we are building. So these are the projects that we are working on. Okay, so next up, step 9, want to give your background buildings element a width and a height. So I'm going to say dot background buildings because it's a class. And then we'll bring our curly braces. We'll say width, give it 100%. We also say height, we'll give it 100% as well. For step 10, we want to nest a div with a class of bb1 in the background buildings container. So this is the background buildings container. Inside it, we want to nest a div. This div is going to have a class. The value of the class is going to be bb1. Okay. Now, open your styles.css, which we have here. So we want to open the file, and what we want to do is want to give bb1, which we just added, bb1. So we say dot bb1, want to give it a width of 10%, and also let's give it a height a height property of 70%. Okay, as you can see, we have our the shape for our building appears here. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so next thing we want to do is inside the bb1 container, which we have here, we want to nest 4 div elements. So we have div, another div, and want to give them each a class. So the class is going to be bb1a, bb1b, bb1c, and bb1d in that order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the first one, give it a class of bb1a, and then I'm just going to use a shortcut to repeat it. So the shortcut I'm going to use is Option Shift. I'll hold Option and Shift. If you are on Windows, hold Alt and Shift and then press down. Okay, now just change these. This one will be B, the next one will be C, and the last one will be D. All right. Okay, so you should give one of the new div a class of bb1c. Okay, so I have bb1b twice, so I should change this to bb1c. All right, now give the path of your building width and height properties with these values. Okay, so the 4 divs that we just added, want to give each one a width and height property. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the first one, which is .bb1a, and I'm going to give it a width property. The width is going to be 70% and the height is going to be 10%. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this and then repeat it. 2, 3, there are 4 of them. So for the second one, I'm going to change the name to bb1b. The height is going to, the width and height is going to be 80-10. So this will be 80%, this will still be 10%. I'll change this one to bb1c. The width and height is going to be 90-10. So I'll just change this to 90%. This will still continue to be 10. Then finally for bb1d, I'll change it to 100% and 70%. So I'll say 100% and then 70%. Okay. So as you can see, we have our shapes here. We are still working on it. We'll make it better as we progress. Okay, so this should be bb1d. Okay, yeah. So now we have our building here. We are gradually building our skyscraper. All right, so for step 13, we want to center the part of your building by turning the bb1 element into a flexbox parent. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to say display and we're going to say flex. That's how we use flexbox. Now, we want to use the flex direction property and align items property to center the children. Okay, so the default flex direction is row. That's why you can see this appearing this way. So this has 10%, 10%, 10%, and this has 70%. But we don't want it to appear as a row from left to right. We want it to appear as a column from top to bottom. So what you're going to do is you're going to use flex direction and we'll override the default by giving it a flex direction of column. Okay, so now as you can see, they are stacked one on top of the other, but they are all aligned to the left. Okay, so we want it to be center aligned. So the way you're going to do that is to use the align items property, and the value you're going to give it is center. Now as you can see, everything is aligned in the center beautifully. Okay, now let's move on. next up for step 14, now that you have something that is resembling a building, you are ready to create your first variable. So once again, remember, this is learn CSS variables by building a city skyline, okay? So in CSS, variable declarations begin with 2 dashes, okay? So if you want to declare a variable, you use 2 dashes, and then you give a name to the variable. So for example, you have this dash dash variable name, and then you bring the value, okay? So in the rule for BB1 class, which we have here, what we want to do is want to create a variable named building color and want to give that variable a value of #999. So the way we are going to do that is to come here, okay? So first we want to bring our 2 dashes like so, and then we want to bring the name of the variable, in this case building color 1. So we'll say building color 1, okay? And then we'll bring our colon, and then we'll give it a value. So the value in this case will be #999. Okay, all right. Let's move on. Okay, so we've created a variable, but to use a variable, we have to put the variable name in parentheses with the var keyword, okay, in front of them, like this. So you have var, you bring your parentheses, and then inside the parentheses, you write the name of the variable, okay? Whatever value you give the variable will be applied to whatever property you set it on. So for example, now we have created a variable here. The value of the variable is 999. So anytime we want to use this variable, what we are going to do is, for example, in this step, we want to add a variable building color you created in the previous steps, which is here. We want to add it to the value as the value of the background color property of BB1 class. So let's do this. We are going to say background color, okay? And the first thing we want to do is want to write the var keyword, okay? And then we want to bring our parentheses like so. Now inside the parentheses, we write the name of the variable. In this case, the name of the variable is building color 1, okay? Now as you can see, we now have a background color for BB1A, okay? And the reason is because this is the same thing as writing this 999, okay, which is the value that we have here. All right, now let's continue. You will see why creating variables are very useful in CSS. We'll talk about it very soon. But for now, we want to use the same variable as the background color of BB1, B, C, and D. So you know what, I'll just copy this, then paste it here. I'll do the same thing here, and I will also do a similar thing here. So now our whole building has a background color of building color 1. Now here's why CSS variables become useful, okay? So now we have these variables here, which are the background colors for all 4 of the shapes that we have here. Now assuming we just wanted to change the color for all of them from this gray to, let's say, green, what we can do is we can just come to where the variable is, then change it to green, okay? And automatically it will be applied to all of them. But if we didn't have a variable, what we would have done instead was to come here, change this one, also come here, change this. So we would have changed all of them one by one. But by having a variable, we can just go to where the variable is, change it, then the change will be applied to all 4 of them, okay? So what we want to do in this case is to change the value of the variable from 999, which we had earlier, to this color here. So I'll just copy this and then I'll paste it. Okay, and you can see how it gets applied everywhere you use the variable. This is the main advantage of using variables, being able to quickly change menu values in your style sheet by just changing the value of a single variable. All right, let's continue. Your first building looks pretty good now. It looks very colorful. Now, what we want to do is want to nest 3 new div elements in the background buildings container, and we want to give them the classes bb2, bb3, and bb4 in that order. Okay. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is add our div element. Again, the way I'm going to do this is to create the first one, which will give it the class of bb2, and then I'll use the shortcut, hold Option and Shift and then press down, or if you're on Windows, hold Alt and Shift and then press down. Okay, now I'll change this to bb3 and this one to bb4. Okay, next up, I want to give the new buildings width and height properties of the following values. So what I'll do is I'll select all of them. I'll say bb2. I'll give it a width of 10%, and then I'll give it a height value of 50%. Okay, then I'm just going to copy this and then I'll paste it below it. So I'll paste 2 of them. So this one is going to be bb3, and the values we want for the height and width of bb3 is 10% and 55%. So 10%, then let me change this to 55%. All right, now I also want to change the values for bb4, so it's going to be 11% and 58%. So 11%, then 58%. Okay. Oh, so I should change the name as well from bb2 to bb4. All right, now this should work. Okay, now finally in this video, I'll work on step 20, and the buildings are currently stacked on top of each other. So as you can see, this is the first building we did, and the second building, as you can see, is stacked on below it. Okay, and that's not how we want it. When you look at our final variable, our final project, the buildings are not stacked one on top of the other. They are side by side each other. So what I will do is, we want to align the buildings by turning the background buildings element into a flexbox parent. Okay, so we're going to use the align items and then the justify content properties to evenly space the buildings, okay, across the bottom of the element. So first, I'm going to say align items, and we'll say flex end, then let's say justify content. We'll also say space evenly. Okay, I think let's try center for this. Oh wait, sorry, yeah, so the reason why, so I think the flex end will work. The reason why it didn't work is because I didn't declare the display first. So it should be display flex. Yeah, exactly. So First, you need to set a display property of flex, which will turn this into a flex container, and want to align the items, so flex end. Let's see what happens when I do flex start. As you can see, it moves to the top, and if I do center, see what happens. Okay, but in this case, we want it to be set to the bottom of the element. Okay, so we'll do flex end instead, so flex end. All right, and then we'll do justify content space evenly, as we're told here, to evenly space the buildings. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, it works. So now this is where we'll end it in this video. So we've already worked our way from step 1 all the way to 20, and in the next video I am going to start from step 21 and work our way all the way to step 40. All right, so thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.